Hi, I'm USA Today bestselling author Jennifer Youngblood. Thanks for joining me for one chapter a day, the clean romance way. Today, I'm going to be reading Chapter 8 of her Crazy Rich Fake Fiancé. So, Wyatt and Haven are an official couple. That was kind of neat how that came about. She's having some trepidation about meeting his family, wondering how they'll react when they realize that she's impersonating her sister. I really feel for Haven. I can understand why she wants to wait until after Christmas to tell Wyatt the truth. Will her decision backfire on her? Wait until you see what happens in Chapter 8. Here we go. The next morning, Haven yawned and stretched, her feet rubbing over the cool sheets. She looked towards the couch. It was empty. She frowned sitting up. Where was Wyatt? She relaxed against the pillow when she heard water running in the shower. She smiled, thinking of how wonderful last night had been. After a series of slow, shivery kisses that took her breath away, Haven and Wyatt had snuggled on the couch and watched a movie. Actually, they'd mostly talked while a movie played. It was scary and thrilling how quickly things were progressing between them. She'd nearly fallen out of her chair in the dining room when Wyatt responded to Lillian by asserting that the two of them were in love. Her first thought was that it was way too soon to call this love. Then she reminded herself that it wasn't as fast for Wyatt. He'd been dating Bryn for some time. She scrunched her nose, but the two of them weren't serious. Wyatt kept telling her how he had changed and how he liked the way she was now. That was music to Haven's ears. She wanted to pursue a relationship with Wyatt. Oh, how she wanted to do so. Her entire body quivered at the notion. Things would be different between Haven and Wyatt today. They were officially a couple. Haven was looking forward to meeting Wyatt's family, but she was nervous too. Her heart skipped a beat as she thought of something. They would meet her as Bryn, not Haven. What would Wyatt's family think of her when they learned the truth? What would Wyatt think of her? A part of her wanted to come clean now, but that would be like shooting herself in the foot. No, she must wait until after Christmas to drop the bomb. Wyatt deserved to have a nice, stress-free Christmas. Haven wanted that too. At this point, the damage was already done. Repairing it could wait, couldn't it? Sure. She wasn't sure, so she silenced the voice in her head. Her stomach growled as she threw back the covers. She and Wyatt planned to eat breakfast at the inn before getting on the road. In less than 5 hours, she would meet Wyatt's family. Butterflies thrummed in her stomach as she went to her suitcase to choose something suitable to wear. A moment later, Wyatt came out of the bathroom. Her breath skittered when she saw him. His dark blonde hair was wet and matted to his head, emphasizing the masculinity of his face. "Good morning," he said airily, striding up to her where he gave her a peck on the lips. "Sorry," she apologized. "I have morning breath." He laughed. "No worries." His lips trailed to her earlobe. He planted a light kiss on the tender skin behind her ear, causing delicious shivers. Wyatt's skin was soft and damp from the shower. She breathed in his fresh, clean scent. He stepped back. His gaze moved over her, slow and appreciative as she self-consciously pulled at her T-shirt. She glanced down at her pajama pants, thinking how awful she must look. Her hands smoothed down her hair. I'm sorry," she was about to say, but the word got lost in her throat as she swallowed. "I was just thinking how incredible you look, even first thing in the morning." She smiled in surprise, delight bursting over her as she chuckled. "You are charming." "Nah," he drawled, "just speaking the truth." "You're super generous," she chimed, "but I love hearing it." She picked up her clothes, cradling them in her arms. "On that note, I should go and get cleaned up." She felt light enough to fly as she practically skipped over the thick shag carpet to get to the bathroom. As she and Wyatt descended the stairs, Haven caught the scrumptious scent of bacon in the air, mingled with coffee. Her stomach rumbled. She looked at Wyatt to see if he'd heard it. He laughed. "What you got in there, a cougar?" Her cheeks went hot as she touched her stomach. "Yeah, it sounds like it," she winced. Easy conversation and silverware pinging plates filled the air as they stepped into the dining room. In the thin light of morning, the room was still magnificent, but it didn't hold the same mystique as it had the night before. She and Wyatt filled their plates and had just sat down at a table when Lillian entered. She was clutching her cane, her movements labored. "Good morning," Haven said as she stood. Wyatt also got to his feet. "Good morning. Please don't get up on my account." Lillian pulled out the empty chair beside Haven and sat down heavily. The movement reminded Haven of a sack of potatoes falling to the floor. "Can I make you a plate?" Haven asked. Lillian smiled good-naturedly. Thank you, dear, but I've already eaten. She motioned. Please sit down and eat before your food gets cold. She and Wyatt complied. Haven placed a forkful of scrambled eggs in her mouth. They were fluffy and tasty. Are you off to Atlanta soon? Yes, Wyatt answered, picking up his glass and taking a swig of orange juice. Lillian nodded. How about you? Haven asked. Are you staying here another night? No, I'm headed back to my home in Connecticut. Will you be spending Christmas with family? Haven asked. An expression of sadness came over Lillian. No, my parents and siblings have all passed on. Howard and I weren't able to have any children. Haven's chest tightened. For a second, she felt like she was looking at a reflection of herself in the mirror decades from now. Would she end up alone too? A shudder slithered down her spine as she brushed aside the fear. She was with Wyatt. Hopefully things between them would work out. Hopefully he'd understand why she lied to him. She'd been abandoned and so dang desperate to not spend Christmas alone. Haven felt for Lillian. I'm sorry, she said softly, wishing there was something she could do to help. Lillian smiled. Thank you, but I'm fine. I'm getting together with some close friends. Oh, good. A swift relief settled over Haven. Lillian pulled at her blouse, shifting in her seat. I'm glad I caught you. She touched her hair. There's a favor I wanted to ask of you. Of course. Haven looked at Wyatt. When she saw the wariness in his expression, she instantly regretted committing before knowing what Lillian would ask. The last time Howard and I came here, it was in the summer. We picnicked beside one of our favorite streams. She touched her left hand. My fingers were swollen, so I took off my ring and placed it on the picnic blanket. I forgot about it and shook off the blanket and packed up our things. I didn't realize what I'd done until several hours later. Howard and I were already headed back to Connecticut. A pained expression crumpled her face. We were about to turn around and go back for it when Howard started having chest pains. We went to the nearest ER instead. Howard was admitted to the hospital and died that night. Lillian blinked a few times like she was trying to stay the tears. A pang shot through Haven. I'm so sorry. She glanced at Wyatt and was touched by the compassion in his eyes. I've been trying to find my ring for the past several years. I'd hoped to go and look for it on this trip. She looked regretfully at her leg. But my knee has been acting up. Wyatt shifted into doctor mode. What's wrong with your knee? Rheumatoid arthritis, she lamented. Well, what's being done to treat it? Wyatt asked. I take anti-inflammatory medication. She cringed. Unfortunately, it's not helping at this moment. Have you considered going to see a sports medicines doctor? Deep tissue laser therapy would help. Wyatt's a doctor, Haven explained. I wish you lived in New York City. I could treat you. A matronly smile curved Lillian's lips. That's very kind of you. I just wish there was something I could do to help, Wyatt added. Thank you. I appreciate the gesture. Lillian motioned to their plates. Please don't let me keep you from eating. Haven took a bite of sausage, trying to be accommodating. There is something you could do to help. She hesitated, picking at her blouse. I was planning on going out to the stream and searching for my ring. Lillian gave them a beseeching look. Is there any way you could go for me? Haven swallowed in surprise. She looked at Wyatt, whose eyes had widened. The stream isn't far from here. I have a metal detector. Her voice trembled with emotion. It would mean the world to me. Haven didn't have the heart to tell Lillian that after all these years it was doubtful the ring was still there. Surely someone had to have found it by now. As she looked at Lillian's pleading expression, her heart tugged. If it were up to Haven, she'd go. Yes, it was probably a futile gesture, but if it meant so much to Lillian. She turned to Wyatt. What do you think? Could we spare some time? He stroked his chin, looking thoughtful. Oh, sure. A joyous smile spilled over Lillian's face as she clasped her hands. Thank you so much. I was hoping you'd say yes. She reached in her pocket and pulled out a piece of folded paper. What is this? Haven asked when Lillian handed it to her. A map of the location. She chuckled. My mind's not what it used to be. I drew this a few years back so I wouldn't forget. The stream is not in a marked area such as a park. It's a little spot off the side of a winding road. Don't worry, she assured them. It'll be easy to find it with the map. My number is at the bottom. Would you mind calling me and letting me know if you find it? Sure, Haven said, wondering what she and Wyatt were getting into. Lillian seemed like a nice lady, but was she all there? The map, a metal detector, trying to find a ring that was lost a decade ago? It was all strange. Then again, it was another adventure. First there was the caroling, then the inn. Who knew what was around the next bend? We had our picnic by the large oak tree near the spot where the stream widens. Okay, Haven said. She looked down at the map with Lillian's number at the bottom. We'll call you and let you know how it goes. Lillian's eyes shimmered with excitement. Splendid. Where's the metal detector? Wyatt asked. Sam's holding it for me behind the front desk. Haven assumed Sam was the man who'd checked them in the day before. It would be easy enough to speak to him as they checked out of the inn. How far away is the stream? About 8 miles from here, Lillian answered. You're such a wonderful couple. It's no coincidence that our paths have crossed. Thank you. She looked down at her watch. It's time for me to go. I look forward to hearing how it goes, she said jubilantly as she scooted back her chair and stood. Goodbye. She met their gazes. I'm sure we'll meet again, God willing. They watched as she slowly shuffled out of the room. It hurt to see her limp. When she was gone, Haven turned to Wyatt. What do you make of that? He made a face. Sounds like a wild goose chase to me. He cut off a piece of sausage and placed it into his mouth. I'm game if you are, he said a moment later. She shrugged. Well, what have we got to lose? At the very least, we'll have done something nice for another person. Yeah, that's the way I see it. He gave her a wicked grin. Plus, I'll get you all to myself in a secluded place. Warmth simmered in her stomach as she laughed. Yeah, but it's doubtful the scenery will look like much this time of the year. She glanced out at the window at the snow flurries in the gray-cast sky. His eyes deepened with intensity as they locked with hers. Oh, I don't know about that. From where I'm sitting, the scenery is perfect, he murmured. The commotion in the room came to a halt as everything but Wyatt faded into the background. Haven smiled, thinking how she'd go to the end of the earth and back if it meant being with Wyatt Black. All right. The die is cast. We'll get the metal detector and go searching for the ring. She stopped. Oh, we forgot to ask Lillian what the ring looks like. He chuckled. Well, it can't be that hard to find with a metal detector. Either the ring's there or it isn't. Yeah, you're right. She took a bite of toast, hoping the ring was there. It would be a wonderful gift for Lillian to get it back, and it would be nice to have the privilege of returning it to her. One more memory they could add to this spontaneous, wonderful trip. What did you make of Lillian's request for them to go and search for a ring that she lost a decade ago? Would you go searching for it? I mean, I can really understand how Lillian feels. That's really sad. I mean, of all the times for her to lose it and then be trying to go back to get it, and then Howard ends up having chest pains, and then, of course, he ends up dying. So I can understand how Lillian would be very, very attached to the ring, especially it had been her wedding ring. But even then, added to those extra events, you can see how she feels a lot of emotion over this. But is the ring still there? I mean, it's been a decade ago. And I guess for me, if someone asked me to do something like that, it would probably depend on how much time I had to spare, depending on, I guess, the weather and everything. But I think it's neat that they're going to actually go and do it. Like Haven pointed out, it can't hurt to do something kind for someone else, even if there's little possibility of finding the ring that was lost a decade ago. I get the sense that Wyatt and Haven are just enjoying being together. Maybe Wyatt is looking for an excuse to keep Haven to himself a little longer before he takes her home to meet his family. We know that he's harboring some secrets, and so we know some things are going to happen when we get there. So it's just kind of nice for them to have this little detour. Join me tomorrow as I read the next chapter. We're going to find out what happens in the search for the ring. Will they find it? Find out tomorrow. Here's to keeping it sweet and swoony. See y'all tomorrow.